Welcome back to Forgotten Hollywood. Quick note if anyone's been wondering about my tiny co host, I do my recordings when he's asleep just because it's easier. He's not screaming or yelling or trying to grab my microphone or anything like that. So that's why he doesn't appear much. However, uh, recently he has been getting a few new teeth, so he's extremely clingy right now and is currently asleep on my lap. So you can see how big he is. He's not so tiny anymore. So if you hear little sounds, that's what it is. I recently saw a trailer for a movie coming out in January. It showed a middle aged man with an unassuming job living in a quiet area whose friend gets into trouble, causing him to fall back on his advanced combat training, and that's when the body count starts racking up. Now, if this plot sounds familiar to you, that would be because it is. In fact, I just did a video back in September about two movies that came out this year with very similar plots to the one coming out next January. Not to mention movies like Red, Equalizer, Taken, and so on. There are also a lot of action movies, notably spy genre, that seem to favor older action stars. This got me wondering how many male action leads in the last few years have been above the age of 40. For the record, I'm only looking at conventional action movies, not ones based on fantasy, comic books, or sports. Of the 15 theatrical releases I could find from this year alone, only one had a male lead under 40, and he's currently 39. More surprising, of the 15 action movies, 10 of them had a male lead over the age of 50, and 4 of those were over the age of 60. 60. And that's not even counting Michael Keaton putting on his iconic cowl at the age of 71. I can't help but wonder, where are all the young action stars? Before I go any further, I would like to point out that male action leads have rarely been played by very young actors. Sean Connery was 32 the first time he played Bond, and Clint Eastwood was 2 years older than that when he became the man with no name. James Garner was 29 when he started playing Maverick on TV, and Steve McQueen was 30 in The Magnificent Seven. None of these guys are exactly 21, but they weren't anywhere close to 50. So what happened? Why did the odd movie about the older action star become the standard? I guess the best places to start is where the earliest action heroes began. Since so many films of the silent era are either lost or forgotten, it's hard to pin down exactly who the first action star was. However, a serious contender is Douglas Fairbanks Sr. He played the very first masked hero at the age of 37 in 1920's The Mark of Zorro, as well as Robin Hood, a musketeer, and a pirate. He even donned the black mask to play Zorro a second time at the age of 40. Fairbanks retired from acting in 1934, and in 1935, 40-year-old William Boyd rode onto the silver screen as Hopalong Cassidy. He starred in 66 films, followed by a television program featuring the same character from 1949 to 1954. He continued to appear as Hoppy as long as his health allowed it, out of love of his young fans. A year after Hoppy hung up his spurs on TV, James Arness started his long run as Matt Dillon. Only 32 when the first episode aired, he continued in the role until his final appearance in 1994 at the age of 71. So this is nothing new. Actors who establish themselves as action heroes or as a certain iconic hero often stick with it for as long as they can, which explains 80-year-old Indy. However, you might have noticed the pattern of younger actors coming in as older actors are going out. John Wayne was 32 when he had his breakout role in Stagecoach. In 1959, 20 years into John Wayne's fame, Clint Eastwood came onto the screen as Rowdy Yates in Rawhide at the fairly tender age of 28. Almost 20 years after that, a 30-year-old Sylvester Stallone put on a pair of boxing gloves. And this was 12 years before 33-year-old Bruce Willis went up Nakatomi Tower. And these are just some examples of the biggest names in action movies. The older stars get older, the younger stars are building up their careers to take over. Unfortunately, that's not the case anymore. In the late 90s to the early 2000s, we were spoiled with action stars. We had Christian Bale, Keanu Reeves, Brendan Fraser, Matt Damon, Mark Wahlberg, Brad Pitt, Antonio Banderas, and Wesley Snipes. Carrying over from the 80s, we still had Arnold, Stallone, Bruce Willis, Kurt Russell, Mel Gibson, Jackie Chan, Chuck Norris, Tom Cruise, Val Kilmer, and Dolph Lundgren. And then from before that, we still had Sean Connery, Charles Bronson, and Roger Moore. 10 years later, who did we have? 20 years later. It's the same lineup! Other than the few that we have lost. There are just so few young action stars. And so the roles are all going to the seasoned veterans, like Jason Statham and Gerard Butler, who, by the way, between them starred in 1/3 of the 15 action movies released this year. It's crazy. One of the biggest reasons I could find for the decline of the young action stars is the hijacking of the genre by comic book movies. Superhero films may go back to the silent era, but the market had just been saturated with them for 20 years or so. And they don't really count as action movies anymore. They're more like fantastical comedies these days. But since 2004, just the last 20 years, DC and Marvel, not counting any other company, have produced 85 superhero movies. 85. And DC, they only made 25 of those. So Marvel alone made 60 superhero films in the last 20 years. Old school action movies have become so rare that when we get one, such as Top Gun Maverick, it just rules the box office. We don't want the latest reimagining of a classic superhero fighting the bad guy with an impressive light show. We just want Dirty Harry punching them in the face. I got more satisfaction watching Robert McCall wipe off a hammer in the first Equalizer movie, knowing that he made a thief regret stealing a lady's jewelry, than I did watching the entirety of The Flash. There is a reason we keep going back to characters like him, John McClane, Rambo, Jonas Taylor, and so on. These guys were relatable. They did things that some of us only wished we could do. They had no capes, no magic, just grit and determination. And the occasional car chase where the hero drives backwards and shoots the engine block of an enemy's truck that makes the bed explode. I love this genre. Thanks for watching. Who's your favorite action star? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the bell for notifications, and I will catch up with you next time.